Hey everybody, this is Doc Mack from the Galloping Ghost Arcade out in Brookfield, Illinois, and we are doing another one of our game player profiles here at the Galloping Ghost Arcade. And we are joined today by our Gamer of the Year, Pete Hahn, who has had such an amazing history of gaming here and done so many amazing things. And we are very happy to find out a little bit more about Pete's history in gaming and his experiences, and thank you very much for joining us today.
Yeah, no problem. I've wanted to do one of these for a while because I've been playing games for a long time.
Yeah. And no, who would be more deserving than you as our Gamer of the Year?
Thank you.
So thank you very much for talking with us. And, and let me front this off with thank you so much for everything that you've done here at the Galloping Ghost Arcade, because you are such an integral part of what makes this place special and what makes it work so well. And not only just on the like playing the games and scoring, but with the community and just with the customers, and you're just part of what the Galloping Ghost Arcade is.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So let's just jump right into it. What was your first experience in an arcade?
The first time I can remember being in an arcade, I must have been 4 or 5 years old, and I was at a children's amusement park called Kiddieland. And I know it doesn't exist anymore because I remember seeing it in the news, like when they were tearing it down. I think it was near somewhere in Chicago on Cicero, but I remember seeing Donkey Kong for the first time, and yeah, I had to be 4 or 5 years old, and it really struck a chord with me. Like, I was awful at Donkey Kong, when I finally got a quarter to play it, but actually I'm still bad at Donkey Kong. But it was the first time I remember playing an arcade game, and the awe of seeing something on the screen that I'm controlling. So
yeah,
that was pretty cool.
Were you already playing consoles at that point, or did you start in the arcade?
No, actually that was the first time I remember like seeing a video game.
Yeah, Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
Your absolute first.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yep.
What else? Where else did you play, like growing up?
Arcades or?
Yes, arcades.
Everywhere. Like I was fortunate enough to grow up in an area where there was, like, you could go to the 7-Eleven, you could go to the bowling alley, you could go anywhere, and there would be an arcade game like that you could play.
Back in a time when arcades were plentiful.
Yeah, I'm dating myself, but there was always somewhere you could play. Like, I remember one of my fondest memories is at a Great America playing there, because there was players from a bigger area kind of meeting there, and while my friends were on rides, I was at the arcade in Great America because there's a lot of good players there that I wouldn't normally play against.
Yeah. What were you playing?
I mean, growing up, like in arcades, the one thing I always gravitated towards was fighting games. Like Street Fighter 2, like really set me on that course of fighting games. I was never good at World Warrior. I started learning stuff in Champion Edition, and started learning like what I needed to do to win. And then by the time Hyper Fighting came out is when I finally, I think, got decent. And then when Standard Super, not Super Turbo, was out, then I started like really like winning a lot, like against my local competition.
Where were you playing most of your Street Fighter games at?
I played there was a mall, I don't know if it's still there, it's called Town and Country Mall in Arlington Heights, and there was a place in there called Just for Fun right in front of the theater. They had a decent local scene there for a lot of fighting games, so that's where I played most of them, because I could get there on my bike. It was before I could drive. Then I played Mortal Kombat at the bowling alley. The bowling alley was the big Mortal Kombat place. In Rolling Meadows, there was a bowling alley. But yeah, the one place I played most at first was in Arlington Heights, called Just for Fun.
What character did you pick the first time you played Street Fighter?
I probably picked Ken first. I think I picked Ken first.
Yeah.
And I probably played most with Ken in almost all the games.
Had you played like Street Fighter was the starting point for so many fighting game players? Was that the first fighting game you played?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And that one I was introduced to at Great America, and the whole concept of putting your quarter in and possibly losing it very quickly to another player was, was kind of what drew me to it, but also what was kind of scary about it. You could lose it so quick, But that's what I think made me want to get better, because I didn't want to lose the quarters.
Do you have both scales on the spectrum? A time when you were playing that you can remember that you won a fight that you were just like, wow, I'm really good. And then also, do you have a time where it was, you're like, oh, what
am I doing here?
Maybe I should go back to Donkey Kong.
There's a couple points. Most recently, so being in the local community for Mortal Kombat 9, like I was at a tournament. There was a real eye opener. It was in Ohio. And I thought, hey, I'm pretty good with Cyrax. I can do well at this tournament. And at the time, 16-bit wasn't on our team yet. And playing against him made me realize that I really don't know this game. So that was it was humbling, but at the same time, it was a good learning experience, because he sat down with me for hours and just said, this is what you need to do to win this matchup, which was instrumental in him getting on the team. He was happy to go through those matchups with me. So there was a point when I was much younger where I was beating people much older and bigger than me, even at the time. I was a big kid, but there was I was probably 12 years old and I was beating 18-year-olds off the machine, and that was a bit uncomfortable. Yeah. But at that point I realized, I'm probably pretty good at this.
Yeah, it's awesome. Tell us about your first time here at the Galloping Ghost Arcade.
It was probably a year and a half, 2 years after it opened, and I was brought here by a friend. His name's Uday Kumra. He brought me here. He's like, hey, you got to check this place out. And yeah, we just came here and we played some fighting games. I don't remember what I played that day first. It might have been Hyper Fighting.
Yeah.
That was it's always been one of my favorite games. It might have been Contra too. I don't remember. But that was the first time I was here.
Yeah.
It was when Uday brought me.
Tell us a little bit about what you find the differences are of being here at the Galloping Ghost and how arcades used to be.
Well, it's a bit different here. Arcades used to be if you didn't go with your friend, you were always kind of it felt like you were not in no man's land, but you basically, everyone else was out to take your quarter in Street Fighter, so it felt a little more confrontational. Here, there's it's the free play model, so it doesn't feel as confrontational. They're just here to take your score instead of your quarters on the game. But I guess the feeling of community is much stronger here, I would say.
Yeah. And you brought up going after scores and stuff. What got you into scoring? You've got so many great, amazing world records and 1CCs and house highs and stuff. Were you always into setting high scores, or?
No, I wasn't. I kind of missed that. I was so into the versus competition, the Mortal Kombats, the Street Fighters, that I missed the scoring aspect growing up. So when I first came here, I noticed the cards on the top of the machine, and there was a couple I remember playing Contra a lot in my youth, so I thought that, hey, if I can get back to the point where I can beat this game, I can probably challenge that score. Mm-hmm. And I think that was one of the first records I had here.
Was Contra?
Yeah, it might have been a house high in Hyper Fighting. Might have been my first score, good score here, and then I think that might have been my first. Yeah, then it may be Contra after that.
Mm-hmm. When you're tell us a little bit about the differences between. Obviously, fighting games inherently are about fighting somebody else, but you have a lot of one-on-one fighting game world records.
Yeah.
Do you prefer playing against computer to people, or which?
It's a different. They're just different. The computer is all about finding what makes it tick. There's tactics that will never work against a human that'll work against a computer. Sure. If you'd look really funny trying to do some of these things on a human, but it's I do sometimes like to play against other people. I'm not in practice in almost any game right now, but it's still fun. It's what got me originally into the arcade, so I'll never forget it. The feeling of competition, of coming to the arcade and meeting people and then playing against them and learning from them is something that's it's hard to replace. You can't do it at home. You don't get that same kind of thing online, I don't think.
Yeah. When you're preparing for score, to go after a score, and you've been so solid with your performances of if you're targeting a score, usually it's a matter of time before it's coming down. I can't even think of a game that you've not just toppled the score. What's your preparation like? Do you emulate it? Do you watch YouTube videos?
I do anything that works basically. Like some games, like emulating it, like the emulation doesn't work or whatever, but sometimes it works fine. Like I remember one time you actually, I don't know if you meant it as a compliment, but you gave me like I took it as a compliment. You know, you said something to the effect of, you know, I'm like Batman, like always prepared before going into battle.
Mhm.
And that was a huge compliment to me because like that's the way I see it. Like I like to have all the information going into something. Like I watch a lot of YouTube videos, and especially on like shmups. Sometimes they're helpful for like a route, you know, to plan a good route, but a lot of times there are strategies where like there's auto fire on these YouTube videos and I can't use the same, you know, pattern exactly. So I'll devise my own pattern. You know, if I get stuck, I will jump on MAME and work out a tough spot definitely. You know, I don't see, you know, the point in dying repeatedly at the arcade in the same place. So I'll do whatever. Like I'll do a lot of research ahead of time. Like I'll ask on the forums, hey, I'm having a tough time with this spot. What do you guys do here? And sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's not. Like I'm on the shmups forums. I'm on a lot of different, you know, forums where people are trying to get high scores, and you know, I do what I can to get information ahead of time so I can be prepared when I come in.
What do you think has been your toughest score that you've taken so far? What's your greatest accomplishment here at the arcade?
To me, I think the Super Contra score.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of my earlier scores, but it took me a while because the game is harder than a lot of games. It's a very hard game. It took me a while to work out how to actually get the score. Like, there's so many things going on in that game. There's hidden timers going on. There's just, it's a short game, so like that part of it was good. It was working for me. But you know, a game that can be beaten in 12 minutes, but it turns into a lot more when you're pressing for points. That score is probably the hardest one I've beaten, I think. Either that or possibly Life Force. That score took me a bit to get. Martin Bedard had that score before, and I know he's had a higher score under different settings elsewhere, but you know, he put up almost 1.3 million on Life Force, and I was able to do 1.5 by beating 2 loops of it. So that one was really hard to do, beating the second loop.
Yeah. Has there been a challenge that you've just been like, I don't even want to be, I'm not even going for that. That's not something that I want to put that much time into? Or
sometimes I'll look at a game, like I'll try to get the house high, and sometimes I won't even say like I'm not really interested in that world record. But sometimes it just happens, like in hyper fighting. I thought that was going to be a long grind. Like the emulation for that game doesn't work well, so I bought myself a board, and I thought I was going to have to practice a ton at home. And then just one night it happened here. Literally, it happened like a few days after I bought that board. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of happy it did, but I also was kind of upset that I bought the board.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, what do I need this for now? I mean, there are some scores, like if I look at them and they just seem that out of reach, I try to do research first before I just cast them out, because maybe it's like, oh, you beat the game, you get 10 million, or there's some trick, you know, that once you figure that out, then that's it. But most of the time, I like to just find out what I can do with it. If I'm not even getting close, then yeah, I'll probably back off.
Yeah. Has there been a score that you've lost that you've been like, that you hadn't thought that you could get back? Or
the last couple of scores I've lost, I think I could still, if I put the time back in, I think I could challenge for them again. Like X Multiply, Jamie Tibbetts had recently beat the score I had put up the year before. Brian Schillo, me and him have been going back and forth on Nemesis, and right now he has a higher score than I do.
Yeah.
I think I'd like to get back to those. I don't think those are out of reach for me.
Yeah. Are those your most current goal? What are some of your scores that you want and look forward to getting?
Lately I've been looking at Polestar a little bit. Just being a fan of the horizontal shmups, I just tried it out, and I'm kind of getting into that. But right now I haven't been focused too hard on anything. I'm kind of in the middle of a move right now, so right now I'm not super focused on anything. But after that, I'd like to play Polestar, maybe UN Squadron, and then maybe Nemesis again.
Nemesis again?
Yeah.
Awesome. You had back when you were on, we had Team GGA. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with
Team GGA for MK9? Was probably one of my proudest moments here being selected for that team, because there is such talent. Like I was taken aback when you asked me to be on it, and you know, I felt a huge sense of like, holy crap, I gotta get better now. But to be a part of something like that is very special. I mean, the Injustice team was great, but I think the Mortal Kombat team, to me, is more special. It's not just because the game I like better. I think there was something magical about that.
Yeah.
We complemented each other very well. We each learned, you know, different characters. We learned bad characters. I mean, if I had a bad matchup, you know, Tommy would, you know, play Sonya to help me work on that matchup, or you know, Aaron would help me, you know, with tips on other matchups. It was something really that, you know, I was really happy to be a part of, and I miss it.
Yeah. Do you have any specific like key shining moments that come to mind, or any favorite tournaments you went to?
There were a couple, yeah. I mean, just going to Evo is kind of a spectacle. Just being there is very cool. And you know, I went twice. At Evo, the first year I was there, I came super close to beating Rio, who everyone knows him. That was like a little disappointing, but also like kind of an eye opener, because a lot of people didn't even know who I was back then.
Right.
People were like, "Who is this guy?" So that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
You know, after that, I started doing better. I am very proud of my second place finish at Toryukin, the Canadian tournament in Toronto. You know, I do wish I won that one. You know, it was close. It was, you know, 2-3 down to the last round, but I do regret not winning that one. But I was also very proud of that placement.
Yeah. Yeah, just absolutely amazing with what you accomplished and what you did for the team and with the team. You provided so much valuable Cyrex information, and
you know, I do like trolling people with Reptile too. And Reptile's the greatest troll ever, because you just dash around and no one can punish it. It seems, no. But I also, another really standout moment for me, I think, was playing against 16-bit in a tournament and using my alternate character Reptile, because he's a better matchup than Cyrax, and actually beating him in tournament. And I mean, when we first started playing, there was no way I thought I could compete with this guy, and then getting a tournament win, you know, albeit with a counter pick, it still felt like, yeah, I'm getting better now.
Yeah. Well, and again, you with the team and everything here at the arcade. We were happy to. And it was literally a fairly easy decision when you won the Gamer of the Year title for 2015. Tell us about when you won that.
I was hoping I would win. I wasn't sure I was going to win. There was a lot of talent there that year. Like Chris Heater had a really good run that year.
Donkey Kong Jr. kill screen.
James had a really good run that year too. Like he's always, you know, a competitor. But I was really happy to win when I did, because I think it's just going to get harder and harder.
Yeah.
So everyone's getting better and better. But at that exact day, I was really thankful, like, to be a part of this whole thing. And it also felt like there was a relief a little bit, but there was also like, oh, now I picked this Gamer of the Year. I've got to prove it. You know, I've got to keep this up. So like, I tried to not really back off and stop setting scores and all that. So I tried to keep that up through the next year.
Yeah, that's awesome. Again, the competition here is so prevalent. And who is a player do you really admire here? Like,
there's a few. I think Jamie Tibbetts is a great player, and he's, you know, his methods of learning things. He's really great at shmups. He's really great at a lot of genres. I think Peter Gores also is another standout player to me. Like, he's one of the best. Like, he'll just see a game and crush it. I think James is a great player. He's super persistent, which I admire, because that's one thing that, like, he'll stay in a game for 8 hours, literally. He'll come back for a Coke once or twice, go to the bathroom, and that's it, you know, and he'll be on the same game all day. And I could never do that. And that persistence, like, that'll get you a lot of scores. You know, I think that's part of what helps me, is that I'm persistent, but I don't have it like James does.
Yeah. How would you describe your methodology to playing?
I would say, like, calculating. Like, I'm kind of picky about what I actually want to pick to go after, and then once I do, I get all the information, And then, you know, when I come out to do the actual run, I try to be as prepared as I can. And if it's not happening, it's not happening. I'll identify the problem spot. I record a lot of my stuff. A lot of my top scores are on YouTube. My good runs are, at least. Some of my mess ups are just private, so I can watch them. But even my bad runs, I watch those because I'd like to know where I mess up. I mean, that's the same thing as in fighting games. If you watch your footage of where you're beat, not just when you win, you get to identify your problem areas. So I guess I consider myself like I'm able to learn from my mistakes. Mm-hmm. So I guess calculating and picky as well.
Mm-hmm. With being here at GGA, you've been able to be a part of so many different events. Has there been any of the events that we've had here that have really stood out for you?
Yeah, the first Shang Tsung's fight night I went to was great. And
which one was it?
I think it was the second one.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was the one with like the main MK9 tournament. I won that one.
Yeah.
And it was pretty cool. Like there was a ton of players in it. Like there must have been 40, 50 people in it. And it was high stakes. Like it might have been single elimination even.
Yeah. We were still doing single then.
And that was really stressful at the time, but just to have that and have a massive amount of people here. The first time I met all those MK celebrities was that night as well. So yeah. It was a really cool night.
It's awesome.
Yep.
Of the games that have come out, we're up to 534 games here. What are not only some of your favorites, but some of, like, was there anything that when you saw it here on the floor, you were like, I'm putting some time on that?
Yeah, there is, and there's games that I said I put time into and I haven't yet. Like UN Squadron is one of them. I love that game, and I haven't had the time to put into it. Ghouls and Ghosts I'd like to put more time into.
Sure.
That's going to require some time to get good at. I'm sure there's more I'm forgetting.
Like Darius.
Yeah, Darius Gaiden. Like that one actually wasn't on my radar for the longest time, but then once I finally got into it, it's like, oh, I get it now. Like it's such a great game. The one thing like ZexX, I kind of had my eye on for a while too. Like that's a really cool game. What else is there? There's so many games here. Yeah, I mean, besides my staple, there's a lot of beat 'em ups that I wanted to get into, like Final Fight. Like I still want to get into that.
Sure.
Like beat 'em ups, I have a lot of fun with them, but I'm not as quick to learn them as other games, other genres. I really I enjoyed playing through Vendetta. That was one of my favorites. In the last couple of years, and it's a very different fighting game or beat 'em up type than Final Fight, but I really enjoyed getting into that one too.
Has there been any game here that is just like you didn't know about it and you found it here and played it and are like, wow, that's one of my top games now?
Yeah, actually, recently, Fighter's History Dynamite. Like, I really like that game, and like, I mean, no one has really played against me versus, but like, I kind of want to play against people in that game because it seems like a lot of fun to play versus. Even, I mean, there's going to be a lot of cheap, broken things because it's an old fighting game, but I was having a ton of fun just playing the computer, and I finally got that darn ox beaten the other day. So
awesome to see that happen.
Yeah, that was kind of fun. I like how it made the sound when he came down. You can knock off his horns to stun him.
Yeah.
But it's a fun game, and if anyone wants to try playing, versus, then I'm all for it.
Awesome. Is there, if you could be known and just have total knowledge of any single game, what would you want it to be?
That's a tough one. I mean, I would say Contra, but I think I know almost everything about it. Yeah.
And you have the score.
Yeah.
On almost all platforms.
Yeah. There's I think what I would do is probably go to Darius Gaiden and try to learn every single stage through the whole map so I could take any path I want and beat the game. Yeah. That'd be kind of cool.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Well, as a gamer, and there's what would you want people to know about you and your history of gaming?
I don't know. I'm a big fan of like mid 80s era run and guns. Like I love the Russian Attack, Contra, Super Contra. I guess I see myself as liking many different genres. Like I like, obviously the fighting games, obviously the beat 'em ups. I love horizontal shmups. Still haven't really gotten into a vertical one, but we'll see. So yeah, I guess I like a big variety, and most of them are pre-2000. Contra, and Super Contra are probably my two favorites of all time.
That's awesome. If of all the games that are here, what do you want to see here that we don't have? You could have any game here that we don't currently have.
Maybe the original Fighter's History.
The original Fighter's
Such a bad game, but so cheesy, but so fun. I remember playing that at Town and Country growing up. So that, I mean, the nostalgia is kicking in there. I mean, I'm sure once I'll play it, I'll be like, why did I like this as a kid? There's a couple I can think of, but there's what was the one? Like some of the older, like Soul Calibur 2, I remember playing in the arcade. Actually, the first one, first Soul Calibur, I remember playing it and then buying a Dreamcast imported the first day it came out to practice at home. That'd be kind of cool to see. I'd also like. I'm not sure. There's almost anything I'd want to play is already here. Maybe the updated version of G Darius with the built-in auto fire. I could see that being going over well.
Yeah. Where do you hope that like with so many of the events that happen here and so many of the new games, like what do you want to see happening within the Galloping Ghost Arcade?
I just want to see more
future.
I want to see more people coming out and just like being part of this community. Like I think a lot of people like don't want to, like when I say the community, like you can come out and not be a high score chaser and still be, an awesome part of this community. Like there's people that come out and they play just their same two games and that's all they want to do, but they'd rather, they'd want to just talk to you and socialize. And I think that's pretty cool. Like I just want to see a bigger sense of community. And I guess people are afraid to put in scores too. And that's one thing I think people are, I don't know, like I don't understand it too much. Like not everyone can be good at everything. So I don't see the harm in putting up a score even if you're not proud of it.
Yeah.
I mean, just if it's something where like you think you can do better, then put it in and beat it next time so you know where you left off.
Yeah. As somebody who's here all the time, like what have you had any customer interactions that have just stood out in your mind?
There's a few. I mean, I remember meeting a few, like now they're year members, but for the first time, like when Brian Shillow came in, like talking to him, like, just learning about him. Like I remember him beating the final fight score the first time I meet him and first time I met him. And that day was, it was a while ago. It was over a year or two ago, but just talking to him, like it was just meeting a lot of these people is the coolest part. I think we have a lot of customers that come in that are they're from out of town. And seeing that, like we drove 5 hours to get here. Seeing that's really cool. I think also that Sean Quigley guy, meeting him might have been the worst. No, I'm just kidding. Messing with you, Sean. But no, seriously, I remember, I want to say he might have signed up for his year membership with me. I remember I signed up a lot of our year members and, I'm kind of one of the first people they meet. So hopefully I come off okay.
Yeah. Again, integral part of this place. Mm-hmm. So I guess we will wrap it up with that. Thank you so much. And I hope this has given a better insight to Pete Hahn, our Gamer of the Year.
Thank you.
So thank you. And thanks, everybody. I'm Doc Mack from the Galloping Ghost Arcade, and we hope to see you around the arcade soon.
All right. See you later, everyone.
Thanks.